Hey guys.
That is awesome.
Wow.
We're seeing that for the first time too, people, just so you know.
I
That
came
is
prepared for this meeting. I was ready. What'd y'all bring?
I got my iPhone.
Got my Canadian tuxedo.
It gets chilly over there in the arcade.
Exactly. That's awesome.
So Jim, I've seen your background, but Tim, you got like a whole new office space again. Every time I see you, you're in a different room in your castle.
I am. I'm on the set of Seinfeld. So
that's what that is. Oh, okay.
That's what it is.
Nice.
Absolutely. So.
And you're always wearing those UNF colors.
That's right.
I'm wearing purple today. That's not
behind you. I mean, your background.
I have to sport the UNF background. Yeah, so we can do this if we want.
It's contractual.
You go from UNF to SAW.
Let's play a game. Let's build a course.
Okay.
There goes the color bars. See, it took
apologize. So, should I give a little backstory here? It's very brief.
I think you should.
But so on Tuesday, here's how brief it is. On Tuesday, I sent an email to Tim and Andy saying, "Look, based on the work we're doing with, the fun discussion we had with Andy, which led to us building Reclaim TV Studio, which then led to some playing that Tim's been doing with streaming his pinball game stuff, me with the kind of presentations. I was like, this would be cool if we could kind of maybe create some sort of special topics DS106 like course, what we're calling ds206 video. You saw it in the intro, which was beautiful on VHS tape. And so I think this session is very nice. It's a brainstorming session. We haven't talked about it together other than that email. Everybody said, I'm interested. So we're here to talk about what it might look like. And that's cool. And if you're following along on TV, anything you hashtag ds206 video, we can basically pick up on and respond to if you like. If not, no worries. I'm not assuming anyone's watching, but there you have it. So that's it. That's what we're here to talk about.
And I'm assuming you registered the domain, right? Like I thought about that yesterday. I'm like, he's been putting out their ds206.video, and I hope that domain is his.
It is. I do own it. Nice. Actually, it's in your name. I think I used your credit card.
Oh, cool.
I'm kidding.
I'll put up a Nyan Cat or some other internet meme video on there.
We got to build the website. You're right.
Well, so Jim, you and I were kind of like talking a little bit about it. And one of the things, I love the idea of it because I love the opportunity to play with this stuff. And obviously, that's what we've been doing here in the studio since we last talked. I kind of basically just ripped off everything you were throwing out there, from like the Luna display with the teleprompter, getting everything set up in here. So
it's all Creative Commons.
Yeah, that's right. Share alike.
Exactly.
And, and so I love playing around with this, but I like the idea. There's something about, I for whatever the term is, course, there's something about a structured way of moving through topics that allows you to kind of focus on individual things. And like when I was blogging about the studio, I kind of broke it into sections and said, let me talk about the green screen. Now let me talk about lighting, and I'm going to talk about audio and those kind of things. And I think when you break all the various components of doing video work, whether it be online or recorded, whatever the case may be, it can look overwhelming at first. And I think if you break it down into the individual components, you start to really understand it and realize how those kind of Lego blocks can go together to create something, really interesting. Whereas, if you look at the studio, you're like, oh God, that's way too much going on. And then you add on there the software layer and, how do I stream to the web? And it's overwhelming, right? So
I agree. And I was thinking, based on our discussion with Andy, one of the real things that hit me right away was Andy coming in and saying, look, take away everything else, strip it down to the basics: lights, microphone, and a green screen. And you're like 90% of the way there. You can probably manage that with at a certain good kind of economic level, right? And then go from there. So I liked like starting even with just like, what are you gonna go out and buy? What's a discussion around some options? Why not? And then that be 1 week. And then next week being like playing with that stuff. And like the other week being like OBS and then, iMovie versus DaVinci versus whatever, like some other thing. So it could go a lot of different ways, but I like the idea of, like you said, Tim, digging in on some of the hardware questions. People can go as crazy as they want, but what's the least common denominator to get up and running, and then what software after that? And you can kind of take it piece by piece and let people run with it on their own, where they write or where they do stuff, etc. So that would be fun. That's what I was thinking, just to kind of get started, kind of like we did with Andy, but kind of slow it down and break it out a bit. That makes sense.
Yeah, and my way of thinking about this, again, I'm coming from the university, perspective and what faculty want. And so I'm thinking of scenarios. So I think we can kind of maybe do a combination of, here's the hardware list, here's the software list, and then let's apply that in these scenarios. So I've got a faculty member who wants to present in front of their PowerPoint presentation. They want to be in different sizes during that PowerPoint presentation, large, small, in the corner, not on the PowerPoint slides. They want to integrate video. All of those sorts of things, we can kind of have those as scenarios to work towards, from simple scenarios to more complex scenarios.
It's almost like an assignment bank, right? Like if you think of like the ds206 assignment bank, and you've got all the various categories and things, you could see people selecting and choosing, and there could be an assignment like, do some type of picture-in-a-picture scenario in which you're demonstrating something on your computer as a video. And it doesn't have to be long. It can be 5 minutes, short and sweet, and you show how to do something on a computer, but that requires you to know, like, how do I capture my screen on my computer and make it, full screen? How do I put myself in a corner? So like learning those building blocks and then applying it with specific things that could then also be useful, I think is kind of cool.
I'll tell you too, and I'm sorry, Andy, I didn't mean to interrupt, but to build on what you're saying, Andy, and Tim, is like, I was thinking this would be somewhat like a workshopping of like faculty who see this stuff, who maybe don't have the resources in-house, or students or whoever, or even ed tech, who want to kind of do this stuff with their faculty, but just haven't had the community or the time and headspace to do it. And this gives them an occasion. So, I mean, it could be as anywhere from like faculty doing it, ed tech who want to learn it, students who come by. But I was really thinking as a way, like you were saying, Andy, to get people's presentation style and used to more kind of fluent with this kind of video stuff. And that fluency is really what we're trying to build. And I go back to what Tim had said when he showed me Twitch. And we just look at those streams and marvel at how much these folks have going on and the level of literacy that they're getting at, and how can we help people break that down so it doesn't seem so overwhelming and get at it piece by piece.
Well, and I think it's really interesting that the video game, broadcasting industry that Twitch has enabled has also brought to the forefront all these technologies, like using a stream deck to control all the things that you want to do, and that can add to the simplification of any of these kinds of things. When you think about a production, you start thinking first about a camera, a microphone, the lights, but then when you start to think about multiple audio channels and multiple cameras, the stream deck and a $300 switcher can allow you to do so much more and still be somewhat uncomplicated or less complicated. There's still there's the diagram that you have to follow all the connections to. And so that gets a little bit tricky, and then, troubleshooting those connections sometimes. But it's amazing what Twitch has done in terms of, like you say, people have got a lot of stuff going on, but they're just pressing buttons to do most of that stuff. So I love the buttons.
And I think, like, for me, like, one of the things that, not to overly complicate the course or anything, but I think it would be cool as a part of it to build out a TV station, like kind of like double down on ds106 TV as a place where people can publish to, where you could have multiple channels running, build our own Twitch in some sense, because the thing about Twitch is you've got DMCA notices, copyright notices, and problems. Some people don't want to necessarily be that public. If they want to stream out, where are they going to stream to in that kind of sense? But like, really, I've always kind of been inspired by the public access television aspect of things. Right. Like, the idea of like that community television station where the quality may not be amazing, it doesn't matter, but grandma's going to come and she's going to bake cookies and show you how to do it. And I think like there's ways to do that now, especially, with everybody kind of being on lockdown and, like looking for more and more ways to engage with people over the internet. And, the lessons that people can learn from Twitch and how to engage with audiences. I just think it would be super cool to say, what would it look like to not only have all the various assignments and ways that people are kind of creating video, but how are you all sharing it together, and how are we, creating almost like this rotating playlist where you could say like, I just want to open up the channel that's all about tutorials and just kind of watch people, doing their thing for a little bit. Or now I'm going to flip over and I'm going to, this one's just like people chatting and doing things or whatever. So I don't know. Like that's my idea, is like part of the project for me would be, how can I take ds106 TV as a space where right now, like we're streaming to it, but it's kind of a single stream. It's just, it's an end point. And I'd like it more so to be a place that anybody could stream to different channels. They could have their own channel. You could have a schedule of things that are playing on there with different categories, and and it could really be a vibrant place, I think, for people to really share that video that they're creating as a part of the class.
Yeah, and the other aspect of this is, again, thinking about the education perspective. And the words that we like to use in academia, like synchronous and asynchronous, that's a element of this as well, and it brings to mind the idea of what Twitch does, and it's live interaction, it's live engagement, and then the educational people talk about, well, let's make this education stuff more engaging. So I think the live aspect versus the recorded aspect, I think, is another thing that we'll want to talk about. How do you, and if you've seen some of the stuff that we've talked about, Aaron Parecki, who does a live stream, I think every week, and talks about, hey, what are your issues or things that you'd like to do with the ATEM, and share them. And he has live chat going, and he brings up those questions, and they've got their little icon and the question that they have. And sometimes even the people are able to do, what are they called? They're like little awards, like little $5 donations kind of thing. I can't think of the name that they're used, but
oh yeah, you've got like bits that people are, all those various ways people are cheering and getting emotes,
I think it's
and those kind of things.
Super chat, I think, is the phrase that's used. So so if you do a super chat, it gives the person who's broadcasting $5 or whatever in their account. And not that we'll do that in the educational environment.
This could really be a moneymaker. I think we're on to something, guys.
I'm liking it a lot.
Monetization is keeps the fires burning, right?
I do think, though, like on that point, I am excited by the idea of not only a ds106 TV being somewhat vibrant and there maybe being live content. And we looked at an example at Cloudflare where they're kind of wiring together Zoom to actually have a schedule built in, and they're doing some really cool things with Zoom to create 24/7 live TV, which I'm not expecting we would do 24/7, but as like Tim's saying, a model to think about is interesting, because when you, Andy, talk about the educational frame, like I always thought, and we've been talking about this forever, like what would it be for an educational institution to have a space where live streaming video was happening, giving the, plethora of different, things going on in that place at this time. The idea of giving them a sense of space in this kind of virtual video world would be compelling. And the idea that you could create a kind of Cloudflare-esque TV station where this stuff was happening and then showing people how to actually broadcast on it, which goes back to Tim's, community-driven television idea, is just that's kind of the idea I see when Tim talks about ds106 TV as more vibrant. And I think it is actually directly parallel. Excuse me, I don't know what happened to me. Parallel, but also I got something like a big, I don't know, like almost like a mini stroke in my mouth. But like
you're a growing boy. Your voice is changing. You're going through things, and we understand. It's fine.
But it's like runs parallel to ds106 TV. This idea of what an educational institution could use, and I see the two as directly related. Like a way to focus their community that's not on YouTube, that's not on Twitch, as much as they're great. But this idea of the green space and a space that's somewhat outside of throw me 5 bits or, the troll comments. And it just would allow them to do that. And then they're going to need a host for
it. Do we know anybody who hosts?
I have an idea.
Yeah.
So I mean, we talked a lot about the hosting of video. I don't necessarily, you probably have more of an idea where things are going in terms of video hosting aside from Vimeo and YouTube, or maybe it hasn't changed at all and it's still the Wild West. But I know that was what we were looking for is, we don't want to worry about getting dinged on YouTube for using a little snippet of music or video. And Vimeo is the same way. Is there kind of a hosted video solution that's more independent than that?
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty is always the size of things, right? Because video tends to be fairly large. Sure. And so it's a little different than, I want to store all my images. Yeah, exactly. I want to store all my images. Okay, you've got a lot of images. That's a couple gigs or maybe 100 gigs. A lot of video is a lot of space, and so that can end up being difficult. And also, there aren't a lot of great solutions that, one of the challenges that I think some of the bigger companies figure out, as is you can upload to YouTube a really massive video, and they're going to compress it down and make it in a way where most people are going to be able to click a link and watch it, even if it's high definition. That it's going to downscale it for the people depending on what their connection is. So they're adjusting bit rates and doing things like that, where a lot of the open source software that gets trickier. It gets like, oh, do you want to upload multiple copies and different, bit rates and sizes and things like that, or is it doing a lot of stuff on the back end that takes a lot of server horsepower? So there's challenges like that. The one that I haven't gotten a chance to play around with, but I'm really interested in, is called PeerTube. It is not a YouTube clone, but it's a video sharing service type situation. It's an installable open source software that you can upload your videos to it. You can allow other people to upload videos there. What's interesting with PeerTube is that it's a federated software, so each PeerTube instance can communicate with other ones, and you can all have a video library that's kind of interconnected. And so I don't have to host all of your videos. You can have your own PeerTube instance, and so can I. We can all have our own libraries and then share it in a space to where it gives you a general search engine, an area to look through all of them. And so it's that idea of a federated instance where all of those various pieces of software are kind of talking to each other. And I think that's kind of an interesting model for this. Instead of having to be the one host that rules them all, and eventually you just can't deal with the storage space necessary to host all of that stuff internally, you let each person run their own instance, and that might be one way at it, if you can make the hosting side easy. So I think that's the trick to it, right? If you have like a one-click installer, I'm up and running, and now I could just start uploading my videos, or I can automatically just throw in a YouTube account and it'll pull in all the videos. I believe PeerTube does that, where it'll import videos from YouTube directly. So you can kind of grab all your old stuff, or Vimeo, something like that. If you can make it easy, I think that would be the way to go. But it's certainly one of the more challenging things, which I think that's this whole course is about. Like video is more challenging, I think, than a lot of other literacies, but it's also become super important. So you kind of have to tackle that head on.
Yeah, one of the specific use cases, and I don't know if PeerTube enables this, but we have online film courses that people are teaching. And so what they want to be able to do is synchronously be able to watch a film
Oh yeah.
at the same time and have people, have the professor even be able to pause it at a certain point and ask a question and get response and then move on through that. So just kind of this shared video watching service. And I know there's some out there, and I've tried a few of them, and they're as wonky as you can imagine they would be for a free service. So I'm just hoping that because of the pandemic initiated online stuff that we've done, that we can start to kind of solve these problems for again, I'm obviously education centric, and that's where my game is, but.
You're right, though. The pandemic has really, in the same way, like you said, like the gaming industry has kind of pushed forward the idea of video streaming. The pandemic has pushed forward the idea of everybody in remote places. How do you collaborate together? How do you communicate together? How do you do these kind of things? And so I've seen Jim and I were just playing around, a week or two ago with the idea of playing old school arcade games together online, emulated software that could communicate in real time with no latency. And so, and I see it time and time again. I was looking just yesterday, I've been playing around with the Oculus Quest 2 headset. And I found that somebody had built a way to join a Zoom call in virtual reality. And so everybody else on the call sees an avatar of you, but you've got like a whiteboard and stuff. It was just and it's almost quirky, but they said like this came out of the idea that, everybody's on Zoom calls all day long, and maybe you do a lot of work in VR, and this might be a useful way for you to be able to still join in on calls that aren't necessarily, in virtual reality, and everybody else is just on a regular Zoom call. So I think there's a lot of interesting stuff coming out as a result of where everybody is right now.
Yeah, and it's not that we can't do that right now. I mean, as I was hearing you kind of talk about that perspective, we can do that with the ATEM switcher and all the stuff that we have associated with what we're doing and how we're communicating right now. I can easily play a video or a movie that all three of us can talk about in StreamYard. Now it gets a little bit more complicated when you get into YouTube and Vimeo to try to do that kind of thing. The problem has been, people have asked me, like, I want to play a video through Zoom and have my students watch it. And playing live video through Zoom is awful. Impossible. It's not, I mean, you can do it. It's just, it stutters. You get all kinds of issues with audio and synchronization and all that kind of stuff. So,
one of the things I always
switcher.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just saying that one of the things I always loved about the DS106 kind of aesthetic, so to speak, is that you can almost narrate your process. That's part of it, right? And so, like, as part of this course, we're obviously going to want to synchronously watch videos together and kind of look at what everyone's done, whether it be a movie party where everybody, like, works on something for a week and then we sit down and watch it all together. But instead, like in a normal course, that kind of stuff happens, and it's sort of like, pay no attention behind the scenes. We've got all this expensive stuff going on, and this is how it's going to go. And it all just looks really nice and fancy. I think as a part of this, the opportunity is to say, here's how we're doing it, and here's how you could do it too with other people. Every aspect of the course and everything that we're doing, is also a process that can be, mirrored in your own, environments and communities.
I like that. And Joe Murphy, who's watching along, hi, Joe, he noted that, one of the things about the struggle in last semester and this semester is to catch up. And a lot of it was one button approaches, and that worked. But I think what he's suggesting is, like, there is time and space and the necessity, I think, long term to think this through. So I think it comes at a good time. So I like that idea of, like, trying to do exactly like with DS106 is about showing you how you do photography, how you do websites, how you manage your site. This will be about how you produce and stream video with that very focused idea. But the beauty of video is, and Alan Levine brought this up in a comment I wrote about a stream I did playing with this stuff, is he said, I'm as interested about the what as the how. So the how, I think, gives birth to the what, right? Because people are going to have to come up with a what to demonstrate their how. And it's kind of like, once you go through the path of figuring out how to use this stuff, you're going to want to create cool stuff, hopefully, or play with it, or create a stupid commercial, which could be an assignment, or do a kind of, biopic, or do a fake TV show, right? Or have a talk show, and then that's something that as a faculty member, you could bring students into. Like, you could start using video as the medium rather than as this kind of strange kind of holding pen right now that it's become for video conferencing. It can actually become a kind of creative palette. So I dig that. And one more thing, Cheryl, who's also watching. Cheryl, thank you for watching. I know that if you're having problems with the audio, we will have an archived clean version, so stay tuned.
Absolutely. Look, I even responded on Twitter while you were talking. I'm the man of the people. Come on.
And I think that's what I was hoping. I mean, the fact that Grant Potter responded even with some fan art early on of the three of us. I think Alan was very excited. And I just imagine there are a bunch of people, Andy, like when you said, who are doing this stuff in their respective institutions and beyond, who could use a community to work together with to figure some of this out, because it's always funner and more constructive to work together in our distributed ways. And so I think it's a good time. And I'm interested in what the curriculum would look like, because, I'm imagining, like, we have a week, we have a topic for the week, we set that up early. There's a time at which maybe we get on and we use Discord or some other place for people to comment or come in. And that's one point, but then people are also writing and narrating their process. And then at the end of the week, we have a way, like you said, Tim, to highlight the work somewhere so people can see it. And there's a kind of dedicated time people can do it or they can't. And then we kind of roll with that for a couple of weeks based on the topic of that week. And then I'm hoping, this is my hope, that a community is born out of that again, like we have, and we kind of have a built-in awesome community of DS106 anyway. But then it leads up to a conference like OER 21, and some of those community members who are already, going to go to that conference, bust out their new video rigs, and they're all like, woo, their little, put on their, tinfoil hats, and they're doing the Rick Moranis and SCTV.
That's right. The birth of so many Jerry Todds.
Exactly. You referenced that. I mean,
I did. I was glad to see Brian Lamb like re-up it this week. So
exactly. So, we could all be we could do an EdTech SCTV. Like, it's not impossible, I guess. Although we need to lean on the Canadians for the references.
The technology at least has been updated since the 80s. The T-bars have gotten smaller.
He looked very current in that strange, when you're watching that video, it seems very now.
It could have been a parody done in 2020 of the 80s TV studio. I love that aesthetic.
Me too.
And I like the idea of a weekly thing. I know Alan Levine, and it has been sort of critical sometimes of why do we always do courses week by week? What is it about that? But it's almost it's a very easy unit of measurement to say focusing on this particular topic. You have a start and an end, the weekends kind of break things up in a way where it's okay, now to the next thing. And so, and we also we're not bound by, it's got to be 13 weeks long, or it's got to run from January to April, or whatever the case may be. It could be ongoing as we think of new things, whatever the case may be. But it's sort of this week we're going to talk about lighting, and that's all we're going to focus on. Or this week it's just going to be about live streaming services. How do they work? How would you do custom RTMP versus just the ones that are built in, OBS versus whatever else is out there, doing it directly on the website, the pros and cons. You could you could tackle each topic from so many different directions and allow people to really just hone in on that particular thing, and then have a handful of assignments that you're doing as part of that, and saying like, okay, I'm going to live stream this week. I've never done it before. How do I do it? Where am I going to live stream to? And like kind of, talk through those things.
Yeah, it would be fun. And, Cheryl and Joe already are suggesting, like Joe is saying, I can see doing a ds206. I got to get that 106 versus the 206 locked in. The ds206 video special topics course, in the summer of 2021 with faculty. And the idea that, maybe if we construct some of this stuff in some way as we kind of go about it. And Andy, you've done a lot of this stuff. You've written extensively. You have a host of years of experience of documenting some of this stuff, that those would be some of the building blocks for people to just recycle it and do it with their faculty, in 5 days, maybe based on their structure or whatever. But like, it gives us also time to build out the curriculum, to have some time to experiment with it, because I think you can compress it or do it in different times once you've been through it. But I always find the week by week gives me time to take a breath, to actually do something rather than just build the course and step back and be a part of it. So,
yeah, and you could, there's nothing to say that like if we're on a particular week and we're talking about OBS and layouts and things, and then everybody's kind of feeling like, man, there's just way too much here. We'll go, well, let's go into next week, whatever. Like we'll take 2 weeks on this, like not being bound by got to get through all of the various pieces by X time or something, and just say, nope, we need a little bit more time on this and note it, right? But
exactly.
To Joe's point about possibly doing a cohort in the summer, I agree. Like when you're narrating that process and talking through how you're teaching it, how you're showing people how to do those things, and you've got things like the assignment bank, it allows anybody to jump in and say, I want to use all those materials to run something here locally and do a workshop or do a course or do whatever the case may be, or just be able to go back and reference it, right?
Right. And Cheryl noted like that. She said, what about bringing a faculty cohort into ds206 video? Totally. And I say, Cheryl, why not? Right? Like, this is great because we don't have necessarily a course on the ground at UMW or UNF or any place. And so part of that is freeing up for Tim and I can't speak for Andy because I know he's got other obligations, but I know Tim and I have been looking to kind of find a way to solidify some of our experience within it. So I know we'll be locked in, all three of us, to do this and to support that going on, and faculty can play along with their cohort.
We're relying on you institutions to bring us a little bit of legitimacy. So if you could show up, that'd be great.
Exactly. But think about it though. You're an ed tech. You're doing this at a school, or even you're a faculty member, and you see some of that stuff and you're like, I'd like to get my hands around it. There's no expense. It's going to be completely free. I think the money may come into effect depending upon how much you do or do not want to invest in your setup. But that's a personal decision, and you could probably do it for pretty cheap. So I think, in fact, you could get the experience again, take what you want and leave the rest. So that's always been a privilege and one of the nice parts of any DS-106-like structure. So I like the assignment banks. I like us working together to kind of come up with some sort of weekly structure that people can play in as they want, and then just rebuild and reconstruct for their local cohorts should they choose to. So yeah, I think it works. The more we talk about it, the more I think we're geniuses.
I concur.
And Irene's thinking along the same lines as me, is like, would a week be enough? And I think, like maybe not, depending on the particular topic. And that's why you could kind of keep it a little bit flexible. I think for some things, a week is probably enough without getting to, you could spend as much time as you wanted, but you can get into the weeds with some of this stuff. Like I've already found, just my personal experience, like when it comes to microphones and audio, that it's like this rabbit hole you go down where it's just like, if I change the level here, if I change it there, and now I'm adding in an expander and a gate, and there's this mic versus that one's a condenser, that one's a shotgun mic, and it's like, you can quickly come into like, there's, like this is an entire profession of, and so, but I think you can cover enough to get a sense of like what works best for video, right? What works best for what I'm trying to accomplish right now. So, and we rely on experts like Andy.
Yeah. Andy, go.
Well, I was just going to say, it reminds, back when we were first in this ds106 era, I remember giving a presentation borrowing on the fast, cheap, and not of control. It was, fast, cheap, and under control, and it was all the resources, video and audio, that allowed them to kind of move forward with the techniques and the software and how to use it, that kind of thing. So the curation of just what you're talking about, Tim, what you need to think about with audio and lighting and that kind of thing. What and all the different levels. Here's the cheap audio route to go, and here's the intermediate route to go, and here's the expensive route. So curating all of that in a common resource, the ds206 video website, where we have a page that breaks that stuff out and breaks it down in a logical way and in a simple, explain it to a faculty member level kind of explanations.
Yeah, and I like the idea of, one of the things I realized strangely with DS106 and now with DS206 playing with this stuff is so much of this stuff is about how would you say, kind of like layers. Like there are layers in OBS of shots, of scenes, and you begin to understand that it's not completely dissimilar from stuff you've learned with images, with, audio. And the other thing would be like virtual cameras, virtual audio mixers, like that stuff, spending a week around some stuff, or even having a place in a forum that people can kind of like follow that trend and then, report back on it or build on it. But I found seriously like the virtual audio loopback application playing with the radio has been super useful for OBS, has saved me on several occasions. And now the ability to use the virtual camera to pull into applications like Zoom so faculty could apply all of this when they go to their classrooms. Like, yeah, there's so many topics that I think we can think about. This is for, and I want to kind of think about it very kind of focused, like this is for faculty who want to be able to explore doing stuff with video beyond, the kind of talking head Zoom session. And I think we could really build a pretty cool class and all the tributaries off of that.
I love the idea of the layers. I was thinking of the same thing, and it brings back the memory of like the overhead projector with the literal transparencies that you flip over to build the story and to build the studio. And so you've got the lighting layer first, and here's where you place your lights, and now you got the microphones, and you flip that transparency over to talk about that. And the other part of this is the specialization aspect of it. It's like, okay, it's almost like, there's in biology, there's people who study, the genes and that kind of thing. And there's people who study plant life. And so the same kind of thing applies to the disciplines in media production. So you've got the lighting experts and the details and the depths that you can go into lighting and the depths that you can go into audio. It's very academic, to inject my perspective again. So I love thinking about it that way.
And I think that's where I think Discord could be super useful as a way to have synchronous kind of ongoing conversations, synchronous and asynchronous, frankly, ongoing conversations. And it's kind of something that, in previous iterations of DS106, there's always been the blogging component, which I think is obvious here, right? You're blogging on your website, showing what you've done. You've got a place to publish the video and those kind of things. We've got some kind of assignment bank. And so all those elements are great, but we've always kind of relied on Twitter for that sort of like back and forth type of discussion, and it's an awful platform for that. I mean, you're limited by the number of characters. You're hoping that someone's on at the same time. Good luck going back and finding any type of conversation around that if you didn't capture it in real time. And I think that's where having a space where people can jump in and there's various rooms that people are talking about various things. And I can, in the evening when I've got time, I can go in there and I can check the room that's talking about OBS and see what people are playing around with, what problems they're having, and kind of address those or mention the kind of things that I'm playing around with it and that kind of stuff. So I think having that element would be the other piece that's kind of somewhat newer to the sort of ds206 atmosphere, right? And is the ability for us to kind of have those conversations, and I've become a huge Discord fan, but you could use Mattermost, you could use Slack. I just find Discord's probably the easiest. I've been able to embed it on websites and kind of, integrate it with other services, and it's free. So there's a lot of things to like about it.
And there is that, the Discord element. What I like about it too is that's kind of what you were talking about, Andy, when you were talking about Twitch. And I've noticed this with Twitch streamers, like they really can integrate the discussion and they recognize, like it's natural in their streams to recognize the people coming on in chat, where right now it's not always as seamless with Twitter, like you said, Tim. And, some of the other options like a forum where people would ask their questions is a just completely different kind of like need. And a blog obviously is about narrating and having an archive of your work and just having your pieces. But a community space, it would be interesting to play with a Discord. And I noticed that Michael Branson Smith, whose recent stuff about the stylized he's doing with CSS to create those movie posters is just amazing. But that's something else. But he said Discord has been where he's been teaching all his courses.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to kind of bring him on, maybe Reclaim Today for another episode, but just talk to him about that. Like, how's that working? What are you doing? How do the students like it? Just to kind of get a sense of that, because I agree with you, Tim. I like the idea of experimenting with Discord for this.
Yeah, and I can't remember whether I talked about this in our previous conversation, but there is a professor in chemistry who's doing a Twitch office hours. So he actually is on Twitch and he's got his video and he's got his whiteboard software and he's got chat. And the students come in and this was actually started before we were off campus, before the COVID hit. And his students just took to that to a huge extent. And I think there was even a write-up in the Chronicle about it. They talked to him. His name is Josh Melko. He's in the chemistry department here at UNF. And so, again, an example of what a faculty member could do with these relatively simple technologies, because I don't think he's using anything more than a webcam, or he may be using a camera with a cam link or something like that. So again, a lot of opportunities to apply this in all the different environments or places that you can apply this in education, in business, wherever. And the other thing I was thinking about is, we're talking about rooms and breakout rooms. Does this mean we're going to have a house analogy for video now?
No houses.
Richard,
Enough of the
Scary,
houses.
Anybody?
Yeah. I like the station idea, though. No house, but we need a station. And we need like a big 80s station to like.
Big satellite
I do like
the
the I do
We do
like
it in
the
Discord.
idea.
Discord is kind of like our old school like BBC like situation. Like I'm logging into the mainframe to send my messages out to the community.
To telnet
Exactly.
That's
It's our
right.
bulletin board system. Yeah. No, it's I that's cool. Well, I don't want to, mindful of everybody's time. You guys got work to do, but I think that this is enough for us to say, it's going to be multi-week. I was thinking it would start in the new year around January or so as the semester gets up and running. Does that sound good to you both? I don't want to assume anything. This is literally everybody.
I thought we were doing this next week. Are you kidding?
Exactly. Because there's all little
I thought you
time.
said this week.
What are people busy or something? Come on.
Exactly. So I would say like that January, I don't know how many weeks, but we can look at what we want to cover and then go from there. And then, we can play it all by ear, but I think starting to come up with some concepts we want to cover week by week, I think we can really start to fill it out pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, I say, we get a basic website up and running. We set up the Discord and start inviting people into that now to help us,
Yeah.
build it out and frame out what kind of topics they want to see covered and those kind of things, and then see where it goes. And if we start with like, here are 8 weeks of things that we're going to cover, and then beyond that, we're not sure yet. That's enough, right? Like, I mean, that's fine to go into January starting something, not knowing where you'll be in April, and I think that could be okay as well. So, but that gives us time between now and then to create like an assignment bank, figure out what are the basic building blocks that we want to cover, when would those be done, how we're going to do those, and kind of get some input from everybody on what that would be like, and basically just start those conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
I am too.
Me too.
Sounds great.
This is super cool. I mean, video is fun to play with. It's even more fun when you're playing with others, and kind of being able to experiment with this stuff. And it gives a sense of synchronicity. Is that a word or whatever? That
Synergy.
It's
synergy.
community.
There you go. Leverage our synergies. I like that. You're a real businessman.
We're
Jim.
gonna boil the ocean together.
Yeah.
But I do think though that the community TV idea, like, I think if we can keep that as an ongoing maybe metaphor for people to come in, have access to, a community to try this stuff out, and then we watch it as a community. Because I think the thing about DS106 that worked for everybody is other people were there, they were supporting you, right? And I feel like I have enough energy, because I know how much energy that takes. It's taken 10 years, but I feel like I've finally gotten back enough energy to do that for 8 weeks at least.
Right.
So,
well, like ds106 radio, everybody, it's your time to have the station. It's your half hour to do your experimentation, or to talk about the subjects, the tutorials of how to actually do this stuff. Or you just, you make a goofy sitcom. So,
yeah, exactly.
Whatever you feel like broadcasting at that time. So, and I don't know, I'll let you guys like police this.
Just keep it clean. That's what I was thinking about too.
Yeah.
Get
the color bars ready.
Good. Yeah, exactly. Throw up the color bars.
Standing
the
by.
station will be offline for the foreseeable future.
What was that one you used, Andy, when like technical difficulties? Like, there were some old school ones you used when we were doing the
Yeah,
kit
I mean that came about with that was back when Stephen Colbert, was doing his show, the Colbert Report. He there would be those times where he would get into a spicy topic or whatever, or something would happen, and he would play the little, the cha-cha music in the background where the technical difficulties slide. So we'll have a bunch of those ready to go.
Yeah. Well, this is awesome.
I love thinking about this stuff.
Yeah,
ds206.video is the website. There's nothing there right now, but there will be possibly by the time you're watching this, or even in the next week or two. And then join us in
soon.
Discord. That's right.
Exactly.
Stay tuned.
Discord.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah. For more.
Smash that like button.
Awesome. All right. See
Cool.
y'all later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So long, everybody.